Breaking news, a suspect in a deadly ambush at a federal judge's home in New Jersey found dead. Detectives are now looking into what could have motivated him to allegedly shoot and kill the judge's son and critically wound her husband.
The suspect had a history of anti-feminist lawsuits.
The murder of a prominent men's rights movement attorney in San Bernardino County may be linked to the shooting at a New Jersey home of a federal judge. Harry Crouch is president of the National Coalition for Men. He says he's known Marc Angelucci for more than 20 years.
I was loved by virtually everybody in the men's rights movement.
Marc Angelucci was my attorney. He was very passionate. He worked for me for free. When I heard the news, I was horrified. What happened to him was completely unfair.
Marc was our savior. You talk about a man who died for what he believed in. We're doing this for Marc.
Dr. Warren Farrell is a world-renowned professor, speaker, and author of several books, including The Boy Crisis. He has been dubbed the Martin Luther King of the men's movement. Take a look.
Is there a boy crisis? Think about when we hear of a police officer shooting a black boy. We rightly protest, Black Lives Matter, but no one even thinks of saying, boys' lives matter. The UN found that boys have fallen behind girls in 70 developed nations. What do developed nations have in common? A much greater propensity for divorce, leaving boys without their dads, being much more likely to do badly in school, being more likely to be suicidal, homicidal, being more likely to be in prison.
Samantha Edis is a feminist CEO of female-run business Park Place Payments and a married mom of 3 children. Now, Samantha says that Dr. Warren's views are not only outdated, they are damaging to women and to men alike.
I'm Samantha Edis. I'm a mom of 3. I live with my husband and 2 daughters and a son. I also run a company focused on helping women achieve financial independence. I also have written a few books. Today, 42% of moms in America are the primary breadwinners. I think that's what equality looks like. My husband and I both work full-time, so we have a very busy life, but there's an understanding between us that we're equals. The construct of our world is set up today as a giant thank you card to white men. If you look at the history of our country, from the Constitution to our current laws, most of them were designed by white men with white men in mind. Everyone in my home is a feminist, from my 10-year-old son to my girls and my husband. I think women can have it all. Yes to the margarita with your friends and leave the dirty dishes in the sink.
Well, thank you both for joining the conversation.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Also joining us from Boston is lawyer, lecturer, and ardent feminist Wendy Murphy, who believes the last thing men need is a movement.
It's a little bit awkward, to put it mildly, to say that the people in power need a movement when we think about movements as the things we hear about from either racial minorities or women or other classes of people who have suffered in some way and are marginalized. They're the ones who need a movement because they're just struggling to achieve basic equality. Men have always had equality and then some.
Samantha, what do you think about this?
I think it's so unfortunate because I think that men and women in some ways are suffering, and that when we achieve equality in race, in gender, everyone wins. And if we approached it as, okay, if women have economic equality, then men are also let off the hook a little bit. Then they have less pressure. So I actually think that saying I've looked at a lot of your views, Warren. A lot of what you say is that men are being pressured to be the breadwinner but hold the door, right? Is that fair?
Yes, yes.
And I think if you look at it, the pressure will be off of men if we achieve economic equality.
So I very much agree with Samantha. We have women, to the degree that they succeed and achieve, free men to not have to put all the pressure on men just to be the breadwinner and to experience what I call the father's catch-22. Men often experience, when they have children, they feel pressure to have this father's catch-22 of loving the family by being away from the love of the family. And that really, it hurts the children, it hurts the woman who doesn't have the support of the man, and to the degree that women are become equal economically is the degree to which that is minimized. We're all in the same family boat, Dr. Phil. When only one sex wins, both sexes lose.
Well, but one of the things that I have to disagree with, or at least expand on, is when you're talking about this economic equality, you're defining currency in one dimension. And I've been married for 44 years, and Robin, who now, at this stage of our life, is very successful entrepreneur economically, but early on, she chose to be a stay-at-home mom, and there is no amount of money that I could have spent to equate to what she contributed to the family. Then once she fulfilled that role, she said, okay, now I want to step out. And that doesn't mean that you can't be a working mom and do that as well. She just chose to do it in a serial fashion. But she's very economically successful now, but she was very economically critical to our family at that time as well.
When those children come, women have three choices. They say, I want to work full-time, I want to be full-time involved with the children, or I want to do some combination of the both. And 40% of married women work full-time, 40% are involved with the children full-time, 20% are part-time workers. But oftentimes men in those same positions say, well, I have three choices too. Option one is I can work full-time. Option two is I can work full-time. And option three is I can work full-time. And we call that liberation, when in fact it's not liberation, it's an obligation to earn money.
Yeah, I'm not seeing them get their violins out for you here. We have to take a break. We're going to meet a man who says his hatred for women grew so strong he started dating men. I don't think it works that way, but anyway, we'll talk to him next.
I hate women. I think they're evil. I think they're manipulative. I think they're all bitches. All this has driven me to a point where I'm dating a man now. I literally have a boyfriend because I couldn't put up with women anymore.
There has reportedly been a growing number of male-only groups whose animosity towards females is accelerating at an alarming rate. Now, my next guest is a former spokesman for one such group, and he says, well, in his words, he hates women so much that he started dating men. He also made a controversial video stating exactly how he feels about women.
I'm Jack Peterson. I was the spokesperson for the Incel community. It's a bunch of guys who have trouble getting laid. I hate women. I think they're evil and manipulative. They're all bitches, just lying whores, all of them. Men are discriminated against in our society. Men really are like the new minority. And I think that we need to regain control of women again, the way it used to be in the 1950s. All this has driven me to a point where I'm dating a man now. I have a boyfriend because I couldn't put up with women anymore. I couldn't put up with being cheated on by women and being lied to and betrayed. And so I've pretty much gone gay.
Well, Jack joins us live from Chicago. You said some things in that video very demeaning about women. Do you really feel that way?
Yeah, I think women are evil. I honestly believe that women have the capacity to love. Women have the capacity to be good, but they need to be put under our control again. And now this is a show about men's rights, but I think it's more about women's rights. We need to take away women's rights to make things good again.
Are you serious about this, or are you just saying this to be provocative?
Well, I've been driven to a point now where I really am dating a man. I've been cheated on numerous times. I've been betrayed. I'm sick of women. I really, truly am. And I'm done.
You're a men's rights advocate. You were just burying your head in your hands when he was saying what he was saying.
Yes, if you want a good relationship with women or anybody in the world, you do not control them. You open your heart to them. You hear when they're upset and they're angry. You hear them out.
Wendy, you're on screen next to Jack. You might want to scoot a little bit to your right. But what do you want to say?
Oh, my goodness. I was going to ask if his real name was Fred Flintstone, because I don't know what era he's from, but it sure doesn't match up with any era I've ever seen. The notion of men controlling women is so offensive. It's really like having a guy come on and say, I'm white, I hate black people, I think we should be able to just have slaves and control black people. It's hate speech in the worst possible way. You have a right to be cruel, mister. You can be as vile as you want. This is America. Your free speech rights dominate. But you're surprised that women don't like you? Hell, you should have gone gay years ago.
Yeah.
Listen, lady, here's the thing.
Yes,
Dr. Phil's
yeah.
wife stayed home. She took care of her, her children. She took care of the house, probably cooked and cleaned. And I bet it made for a happy marriage. She was not a career woman for years, and that was a successful situation. And that's, in my opinion, that's how women should operate. They should not be in the workforce. Stay home, do your job.
Whose wife are you talking about?
Your wife, Phil.
Oh, yeah. Bad example to pick there, Jack.
And my feeling is because I chose to be a stay-at-home mom and do my job passionately, take care of my home, our home, take care of our children, take care of our family, and take care of my husband, take care of myself, and did it so passionately, it therefore allowed Philip to do his job passionately. It's only because I was so passionate about my decision, he then had the opportunity to be passionate about his career.
Yes, I agree, and I agree.
And let me say, when these
in our roles in our family.
When these decisions were made, by the way, we were so poor. I've often said, if it wasn't for 2-for-1 burger bucks, one of us would have starved. And thank God she didn't eat near as much as I did. We have to take a break. A woman who walked away from the feminist movement. She'll tell us why next. Cassie Jaye says a controversial documentary she made about the men's rights movement didn't just change her point of view, it changed her life. Take a look.
Men and boys are in crisis and they need your support.
Every society survived based on its ability to train its sons to be disposable.
93% of workplace fatalities are men. 4 of 5 suicides.
The family court system truly is biased against men.
But if you start to talk about those issues, people get hostile.
You are f***ing scum.
Is the men's rights movement the gender version of the white nationalist movement?
We're not blaming men. We just named everything bad after them.
Well, joining now from San Francisco is Red Pill documentary maker Cassie Jaye. So, Cassie, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And how did this change things for you?
Oh, a complete, well, I don't know about a 180, but I can summarize that I started out as a very staunch feminist of about 10 years before making the Red Pill documentary. And after about 3.5 years until I completed the film, I no longer call myself a feminist. I'm also not a men's rights activist, but I definitely see both sides, and I find myself somewhere in the middle where I can understand both perspectives.
What was the biggest revelation to you when you got into your research and started talking to some of the participants in the documentary?
Gosh, well, I mean, the laundry list of men's issues just goes on and on and on, and we don't have enough time to discuss each one, but suicide rates, 78% of all suicides are men. Workplace fatalities, 93% in the US are men. There's child custody issues, there's child support, imprisonment for failure to pay child support. There's many issues. I could go on and on if you'd like.
I find it interesting that some of those things that you're describing don't get much airtime in terms of the suicide rates, the fatality rates on the job, and that sort of thing. That's not the kind of equality that women talk about wanting. Yeah. They want different kinds of equality, but there are risks associated with that. as well, and you agree with that, right?
Absolutely. I think that, you know, as we gain equality in this world, we're going to see a lot of discomfort and a lot of things that make both sides uncomfortable. And I think what we've seen from your conversation is that there's actually a lot more common ground than we realize, but it's when nobody speaks. I mean, obviously we have an extreme here with Jack, and I think everyone here, I know I feel sorry for Jack. I feel that he's obviously suffering and feels that by other people's suffering, he will alleviate his own suffering, and that's not the case.
It doesn't work that way.
I am suffering, yeah, and I've suffered at the hands of women. And as far as taking away women's rights and what I talked about before, I think that would be a better situation for them where they would be happier.
And when you say less rights, what kind of rights are you saying should be taken away from women?
Well, I don't think they should have the right to vote. I don't think they should be allowed in the workplace. I think they should, you know, honestly, I think they should be forced to stay home and submit to a man.
Yeah. Cassie, Wendy, y'all want to respond?
Yeah.
Cassie, go ahead.
I would just love to really make it clear that Jack, the incel, does not represent the men's rights movement. So he is absolutely an extremist that I certainly disagree with. I'm sure Dr. Warren Farrell does. Clear.
What do you disagree with?
Oh, every men's rights activist that I met while making my film, The Red Pill, believed in and supported women's rights, and they are for human rights, which is why they also care about men's rights.
But women are less than men. Women are lower than men.
Oh, come on, Jack.
I truly believe this.
Our men's rights. If one wants to understand the men's issues movement, see Cassie Jaye's Red Pill, and also pay attention to exactly what you were talking about before, about what's happening in courts. Is a lose-lose situation with fathers. Women need the help of men to raise the children, and what's often happening with boys today is that the boys that are part of the boy crisis resides where dads do not reside. Children who are not raised by dad, don't have dad involvement, are hurt in more than 50 different areas, including suicide, drug addiction, homicide. Sure. You know,
Mr. Farrell, can we just agree on one thing? That if Jack is the man in the family, the children and the mother should run like hell in the other direction, because you don't need him. It's better to have a one-parent family, one woman, than have him anywhere near any child or any woman ever. Can we agree about that?
I think we can agree about that. Look, I've got to take a break. We've heard a lot of opinions from some of the leading figures in the field of men and women's rights. Next, I'll tell you my position on the issue. We'll be right back. Are we as a society discriminating against and attacking men for simply being who they are? Or are certain groups of men being emasculated by the steady growth of the women's rights movement? Now, these are just some of the questions that we've been discussing this past hour and that rage on the internet. And, you know, I just want to say my position on this is you listen to extremists that get out in, you know, the real far reaches where they leave logic behind and they start taking radical positions, and that's where you create this divide. But I think if you talk to intelligent people about coming together, all of those things fall away. Because let me tell you something, if I go through a windshield and have a head injury and wind up in the hospital, and I look up and the finest surgeon there is a mother instead of a father, I could care less. What I want is the finest surgeon that is there. And to make statements like women shouldn't be in the workforce is idiotic. This country would collapse if you didn't have that talent pool in America. There's no question that the pendulum swings too far, and when you get guilt by accusation and someone's life is wrecked because of a zeitgeist, something that's blowing through society, that's clearly wrong. That is an injustice. And there are injustices to women, there are injustices to men. And that's something that has to do with justice and human rights. And to me, that's not gender specific. That's on both sides of the gender divide. It doesn't matter. It's happened to women who have been raped and get excoriated and humiliated on cross-examination and shamed out of taking their position. It's just as unjust in that situation. So if we can just simply stop judging and start looking for common ground, then we'll find answers, because to me, everybody has something to contribute if we'll just take the blinders off and recognize it. Okay, are men the new minority? That's the question I asked my audience at the start of the hour. I'll have the results right here, and I'll be revealing them next. Earlier in the show, I asked the virtual audience this question: are men the new minority? And here are the results. 21% said yes, and 79% said no. So there you have it. I have to say, from my point of view, just so you know, there would be no Dr. Phil show without women, because probably 85 to 90% of my staff is female. My executive producer is female. My director is female. So I got to say, you ain't taking them out of my workforce, or I'd be down here with a sketch artist and a flashlight trying to do this broadcast. So no way that's happening. I want to thank all of my guests today, seriously. And for more information about today's show, log on to drphil.com. I know the conversation will be hot and heavy. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, where all this conversation will be going on. And Robin talks about this very kind of thing on her podcast, I've Got a Secret. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to my podcast, Fill in the Blanks. In this deeply moving and enlightening episode, I speak with the New York Times bestselling author, Dr. Warren Farrell, about his new book, The Boy Crisis. You don't want to miss this. So stay safe. We'll see you next time.